This is iDesign Lab, a podcast where creativity and curiosity meet style and design. Curator of interiors, furnishings, and lifestyles. Hosted by Tiffany Woolley, an interior designer and a style enthusiast, along with her serial entrepreneur husband, Scott. iDesign Lab is your ultimate design podcast, where we explore the rich and vibrant world of design and its constant evolution in style and trends. iDesign Lab provides industry insight, discussing the latest trends, styles, and everything in between to better help you style your life through advice from trendsetters, designers, influencers, innovators, fabricators, and manufacturers, as well as personal stories that inspire, motivate, and excite. And join us on this elevated, informative, and lively journey into the world of all things design. Today, we're excited to have Matthew Van Eyk, the owner of Oakscapes, as our guest. Oakscapes is a premier paver and landscape design company that specializes in high-end residential design solutions. From crafting beautiful driveways and installing lush turf for your backyard garden to building the perfect paver patio. Matthew and his team at Oakscapes are passionate about helping clients fall in love with their homes by offering a comprehensive range of landscape and design services. Matthew prides himself on Oakscapes' reputation for excellence, always putting client satisfaction at the forefront. Join us as we dive into the world of high-end outdoor design, the art of transforming outdoor spaces, and the secrets behind building lasting client relationships. Welcome, Matthew.
Welcome to the iDesign Lab podcast. Today we have Matthew Van Eyk with us, and we spend a lot of time talking about design and mostly about interior detailing. So today I'm excited to dive into exterior with you. But we want to start and tell us about who you are and your amazing company, Oakscapes.
Thank you very much. Matthew Van Eyk with Oakscapes. I started the company about 2 years ago now. I started doing pavers when I was 15.
15?
Yeah.
Was your father doing it?
No, my parents bought a Coulter home.
Okay.
What's a Coulter home?
It's like a big company, like a GL, but
yeah,
it's
like a GL home or like Taylor Morrison or something like that.
Right.
And so they bought like a brand new Coulter home in a community, and you have your 1 year warranty, with most of these builders.
Right.
And the driveway was done terribly.
Which we see quite a bit.
Yeah, no kidding. No kidding. And so I started, my parents went through the whole spiel of trying to get the warranty to fix it and whatnot. So they had their paver guy come out and fix it. And so he was working, and, we always like working outside, my brothers and I and my dad. So he's like, hey, do you need any workers? And this guy was like, I don't know, 50 or something. And, kind of like one of those
good old boys, like we said.
Yeah, a little bit, kind of like a hippie, kind of funny. He's like, sure. So I was 15 or 16, and my brother's 14, and so we started working for this guy.
Oh, you started working for the guy?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah. So we're both in high school, and we'd work whenever we had times off. We were homeschooled, so.
You were?
Yeah.
I didn't know that. I wanted to dive back into that.
Okay, yeah. So we could kind of work when he needed us to work, He didn't
Not just on your house, but other houses.
No. Yeah. So we started working all over for Coulter Homes, and Coulter was building a lot up in Stewart at that time. So he had 4 communities for Coulter he would do repairs on. And then we,
There's the driveways?
Driveways, patios.
Walkways?
Yeah, mostly. Especially pool decks. The pavers around pools always sink because they're not back graded correctly. So we did a lot of pool decks. And
so
we were young, so we just when we were hot and tired, we'd jump in the swimming pool and stuff.
At someone's house.
Yeah. Oh my God. Yeah, it wasn't the most reputable in the world.
So that's how you got started.
Yeah.
That's like a funny story.
That is hysterical.
I mean, so many people that we sit here and talk to, they went to college, they planned this.
Yeah.
But you kind of just maybe fell into it.
Yeah.
Literally.
Literally.
So you learned the craft from this guy who was kind of a hippie.
He's a little bit of hippie. He was Brazilian, so he would.
But I have to ask a question because we know your work, and your work is impeccable. It's really, really well done.
Thank you.
Was this guy the same kind of high quality that you are?
Not quite so much.
But you learned about probably what not to do.
Yeah, we learned not what to do, and then we learned, when you do so many repairs, you know what
is the problem.
Yeah, causes problems.
Right.
So that helped us out a lot. So my brother and I did that for 3 or 4 years.
That's a long time at that age.
Yeah, a long time.
Yeah.
We were making $10 an hour.
Right.
Which we thought was gold.
Right.
Everyone else was doing, hourly at Publix or whatever, making $6 or $7, and
but it's hard work. You're carrying bricks,
for
so
sure,
carrying
pavers.
For sure. But this guy, we didn't know, but he was making a lot of money off of us.
Oh, that's so funny.
But yeah, so I did that. Then I went to college. I worked for a couple big GCs. I worked for Ranger Construction, which is like a big commercial civil construction company. Then I worked for a GC in Boca. We did a lot of commercial renovations, which was a lot of fun, but we worked for national companies.
But was all this work exterior, outdoor?
No.
Hardscapes?
So
interior too?
No, so for Ranger, it was civil construction. So, you're doing, we built bridges, roads, the Highway 95.
Wow.
So like big construction. That was a lot of fun.
Probably.
But it was, I don't know, I don't like big corporate
I know. You
environments.
spend so much time, right, going through
Wasted
all the
time.
red tape.
Yeah,
I
much
agree.
time.
So much wasted
it was really cool, like the Hood Road Bridge in Palm Beach Gardens up here. Like I was on that construction project, and it was a blast. But it's just, a lot of big corporations, not a big fan of it. So then I went to the GC in Boca, MDS Builders, which I loved a lot. And they're excellent. The owner's excellent. My boss was excellent. So we had I enjoyed it a lot there, but we worked for national clients. So we worked for Verizon and T-Mobile and those kind of
great
companies.
contracts.
Yeah, great contracts, but we worked in the Southeast. So like I was the estimator and project manager for some, and you just don't get to see your projects,
Finished.
Yeah, they're in the middle of nowhere, Alabama or Mississippi or up North Florida. So you get to see pictures in your building. Yeah, you don't get to make a relationship with your contractors and whatnot. So I decided to quit there and then start Oakscapes. So.
But I love that you knew that at a young age, that you wanted to have a niche and you wanted to build something more.
Oh yeah, I always wanted to start a company.
Definitely have the entrepreneurial spirit.
Yeah, thank you.
So you jump out of sort of corporate world into your own business. So now you're designing and creating your own business.
Yeah.
Your own brand.
What made you pick doing outside or hardscapes, as I call it?
Yeah.
Compared to doing something else in construction or.
I knew it well. And I was good at it. I am good at it.
Right.
And you're in Florida. You want to go outdoors. That's why people come to Florida. And
isn't that the truth?
you spend so much time on your pool deck and your patio, and you can build and create designs that people love and they spend a lot of time at. And then especially with the outdoors, and especially with primarily residential construction, you get to have a relationship with these people, and they just appreciate you and love your work, and
word of mouth.
I love word of mouth, but I just love working with people, so that's the main reason.
I love that.
Yeah, my brother actually, he ended up he owns a paver company up in Stewart as well.
Really? So you're both kind of doing the same thing?
Is it like a sister or like a sister? I would call it a sister company.
No,
in your case, a brother company.
We considered doing that, but it was just better, I think, just to do our separate. We might merge eventually, but he's been doing it for like 6 years now. So so it was.
All from a
That-
guy that did your
hysterical.
driveway.
Yeah.
That is so funny. Do you know where that guy is today?
Oh yeah, he's still up in Stewart. He's still doing the same old thing. Yeah.
So what made you choose South Florida? Obviously, Stewart's kind of not South Florida, but
yeah. So
to focus,
my dad's a pastor, and so he I was born in Canada. Then he went to school in California. And then he was called to be a pastor up in Vero. And then he transferred to Stewart. So that's what brought us to Florida. And then I went to school at FEU for engineering.
Oh, wow.
And so that's how it came down here.
Yep.
And I've lived here for 8 years or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
And met my wife, got married here, and her family's close by.
Right
and,
here.
Yeah.
Aww.
So it's
literally the American dream.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, I love that.
So you jump into and create Oakscapes. How did the name come about?
Well,
because designing, creating a name can sometimes
it's
be
challenging. So Van Eyck means from the oaks in Dutch.
Okay.
Oh,
And
wow.
so I didn't want to
Your last name.
Correct. I didn't want to use my last name just in case
You wanna go
someone
big,
ever sells
too.
it
Yeah.
or something.
Yep.
But I still wanted to incorporate that.
Mm-hmm.
So, and we want to do landscaping and hardscapes and
Right.
whatnot. So I thought it was a nice merging of the two.
It really is. That's special.
Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah, it's kind of fun.
So
It took a while. Yeah.
So how difficult is it to go into a business like this and find your first client?
Yeah,
It
was a challenge. I anticipated, being, rather slow for the first 6 months, a year or whatnot. But
did you have a client
or
to
pound the pavement,
Did you-
literally knock on doors?
Yeah, I did.
like-
did you have a client to start with going, okay, I've got a client, now I'm going to start this business because
No.
I've got some income coming in. So you basically
No.
decide you're going to start this company, you have no new business,
yeah.
you create a name,
Mm-hmm.
and now you've got to go find
Yeah.
a client or
Yeah,
clients.
yeah. So
That's
it's a lot of work.
challenging.
Yeah, it's very challenging.
How do you overcome that?
It was, I tried a lot of things, and as you do it, you learn and modify and
Right.
figure out what works.
Pivot.
But what were
So-
some of the first things that you did? Was it putting a website together,
Yeah.
putting an ad? Or?
Yeah, so I did a lot of that background work before I quit my other company.
Okay.
So I just did it at nights, and on Fridays, and I take a Friday off here and there just to prepare for this.
Right.
So I had, my website up. I had, all my estimating templates and everything, in check, and then I had a marketing company ready to go.
Okay.
So as soon as
So you hired a company to help you in the market.
Correct.
So all of this is what we consider designing your life.
Yeah.
So you're designing and putting together a plan to launch a new business.
Yes, sir.
And it's there's a story behind every one of these and how
Yeah, there
people
sure.
do it.
Yeah.
So how did your values and obviously being homeschooled and what you learned shape the value and the principles to what Oakscapes is now and will grow into?
Yeah, that's a good question.
I mean, the name says a lot about the value and
Thank you.
principles, but
I worked in construction in Florida a long time, and there's a lot of poor contractors
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
or subpar
As
contractors.
you know,
Yeah, we've dealt with them,
Right.
and we still deal with them. And so I always wanted to, and my principles is to stand above everyone and do the best work you can. And so in our projects, we try to stand by all the premier installation guidelines, the ICPI, which is the International Interlocking Paver Association. So there's national regulations for these things that aren't
Okay.
necessarily implemented,
Right.
but they're suggested by, guys who've been doing pavers for, years.
Okay.
So we try
I
to
didn't
do
even
the
realize
best.
that.
Yeah. So we try to, adhere to that.
Is that
and-
changing constantly, or is that something that's kind of tried and
I mean, it
true?
is changing a little bit in regards to like travertine and marble and porcelain and how you install all those things. Pavers have been around for like 150 years.
Uh-huh.
Mm-hmm.
So that really hasn't changed
Right,
too
right.
much. There's like, new designs for your edge restraints and whatnot, but it's pretty minimal. And so, just to, do good work, be a step ahead of everyone and, communicate well, I don't want to come back in a year or 5 years and someone be like, oh, this driveway looks terrible,
right.
I want to be there for someone who could live in a house for 20 years and the driveway still looks great or the patio looks beautiful.
Right, right.
So the projects that you're approaching in a new client, are most new clients have a plan and you're kind of following what they want to do? Or are you kind of leading them on the design process?
Yeah, it's probably about 50-50. Half of them, have an idea of what they want to do.
But do they have the stuff like picked out?
No, but most, very few have what they have picked out.
So you're helping them in picking it out.
Correct.
If you're not working with an interior designer.
Correct. Yeah. So, most people have like an idea of what they want. Maybe not the exact shape and whatnot, or, the material necessarily. So, then we go through what their budget is.
I was going to say that would depict a lot, right?
What the functionality is for it, if it's, if they have little kids there, if they have, their grandparents walking around, what's the safest thing for them to use? And then obviously their price point.
So you brought up budget. Do you try to get out of people what their budget is? Because most people don't want to express a budget.
Yeah, so I pretty much always try to get it out. Most people don't want to.
Right, which is a hindrance that people don't realize.
We talk about that a lot.
Yeah, that's a big thing. And, especially with material selection, your budget plays heavily into that.
Right.
So, and budget's hard, especially if you're just doing a patio just by itself without doing a whole redesign, People don't really know what the pricing is or, what to expect. And since COVID, everything shot up. So, they think it's
still
$5 a square foot when the standard now is $8 a square foot or what have you. So, budget, it's difficult to get people to do that. And people aren't really anticipating like how much
it's a big cost.
Because
it covers a lot of area.
It covers a whole lot. So
what is a standard? Like, do you base like budget on the price point of the house, of the real estate value, or
no, not really, just for like consistency. It's mostly just based off of materials and then the project at hand. If it's depends on where the home is, you offer, slightly different materials and whatnot. But,
based on the value of the home or the area.
But, I still try to not just make standard assumptions and just, give everyone all the options and then say, pavers are going to be your cheapest, travertine marbles a little bit higher, and then your porcelain is the most expensive.
I know, and people automatically think now porcelain's like it should be less
they
expensive.
think it's the like cheap,
right?
And
it's the opposite.
The material manufacturing for outdoor porcelain is quite expensive.
It is.
So what kind of what we're talking about when I say hardscapes, it's really you handle everything that's exterior of the house, from driveways, patios, walkways, planters.
Correct. Yeah, retaining walls, all those steps, whatever has
grass, artificial grass.
Correct. Yeah.
Pool design.
Yeah, usually pool design. We work with you guys on some things,
right.
And then there's a good pool contractor I work with.
Mm-hmm.
Usually I just let them handle the pool design for that, and then we construct the hardscape design based off of the pool design. Yeah, because like a pool's usually the focus point,
right.
of a patio.
Right.
So it's good to hem out their design and what they want, and then work around that.
Right. Yeah. So I see there's a lot more that's put into backyards than a lot of other places around the country, because people are spending so much more time
outside
in their backyard. Hanging out, entertaining, jumping in the pool.
Yeah.
So it's from an aesthetic point and a value standpoint of a home.
Yeah, for sure. And even if you're planning on selling your house in 5 years or 3 years or whatnot, you're not going to lose that money that if you put in a pool deck or a patio or whatnot.
It comes back.
Yeah, it definitely comes back. There's no doubt.
There's value.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of patios are the selling points for houses these days, especially here in Florida, They could be like, oh, the house needs some work, but it has a beautiful backyard,
Exactly, you're
and that's
right.
what catches people's attention.
Right.
That's so true.
Yeah.
That's so true. So how do you balance the technical aspects of the outdoor, like drainage, in like line with materials? And one thing I think about in design a lot is like the undercover patio being seamless with like a pool deck, like those, or not necessarily seamless, but part of all the design. And meanwhile, sometimes undercover patio, you're using slab versus paver, could be sand set. Like how do you go about all those variables?
That's a hard question. Yeah, it's a little bit challenging, especially in Florida, because usually if you have like an undercover patio, especially if it's enclosed, it's already done.
Yes,
often,
true.
And people typically start with the inside of their house and then do the outside of their house, and they don't usually, like, what do you would say?
Coordinate the two.
Yeah, have a cohesive design, which you like saying.
My favorite word, yeah.
And so that's always challenging because, people don't want to pay for the materials twice.
Right.
And then say, this matches the inside, but whatever you put, if you like white stone and you put, a beige or, a tan in here, it doesn't match. So that's always a little bit challenging. And so it would be helpful to, have people think a little bit of what the whole design is, the interior and exterior.
I think one of the things that Tiffany was also kind of alluding to is that it's not just putting in a patio.
Yeah, for
sure.
sure.
You're taking into account drainage.
Yeah.
Like she mentioned.
Yeah, that's always very difficult. I worked in North Carolina for a year where you have a lot of hills.
Hills, yeah.
So it's easy to get rid of water.
Right.
Very easy. And, the properties are larger.
They
And,
just
you
slope
can
down.
Yeah, it just slopes down into the creek there and you don't got to worry about it. In Florida, we don't have that. By law, all the rainwater on your property has to be
retained on your property.
Correct.
Can't roll off to someone else's.
Correct. So that's one of the teaching aspects in when you're dealing with homeowners. Is we just slope it right to the edge and it's not my property. And you got to, say, no, that's not the proper way to do things. You can't just put pavers right to your fence line if you don't, put a drain in there and put the water somewhere else.
Right.
So that's always a struggle.
Well, and drainage can hinder your installation as well,
yeah, for
can't
sure.
it? I mean,
yeah. So like drainage in Florida is very challenging to work with, and so we're very mindful of it. We try to make sure that all the water drains, either to the front of your property, or put a French drain in. Those are additional costs that people don't appreciate. So it's hard to sell people on that because this other guy.
And people don't think about that when they're redoing the backyard, because we've run into projects where we're going and we're redoing the interior of a house. The back of the house looks beautiful. It was recently done.
Yeah.
But the people are saying we've got this problem that when it
the
pours,
water,
the water
There's
is collecting
two
like on this one side of our pool, right near our back door, and it sits there for it will take a day for it to go away.
Yeah.
Like what do we do about that? And then we look and who did your backyard? They didn't properly pitch.
Yeah. Yeah.
Or
so
they pitched it the wrong way where the water's rolling towards the house and puddling.
So there's two big issues with that in Florida. Either they didn't pitch it the right way or they didn't consider, where the water would pool and install the correct drainage. And then the other big issue is in Florida is that many contractors use recycled concrete as their base material.
And what's the difference of?
So you're supposed to use like a lime rock base or something similar to that lets water percolate through. So when we do our installs, we do 3 to 4 for a patio. We do 3 to 4 inches of lime rock. Then you have your DOT bedding sand, and then you have your pavers on top. All those materials let water percolate through, and so you don't have sitting water. You still install your drains, if you have excessive rain or whatnot. But, just simple rain, this lets water percolate through. Recycled concrete does not let any water percolate
Is it less
through.
expensive, recycled concrete?
Far less.
And is it like if I always think of it this way too, is it like not a natural? Is it kind of a synthetic material?
Correct. So, there's, on some jobs it's okay to work with to some degree. But for the large majority of jobs, it's not the best. So that's a struggle with bidding projects. You got to educate the people and say, we use the correct materials, that are helpful for you, helpful for water mediation, helpful for what the state requires. Not just, what's cheapest and what we can do the fastest. So those are, so, the best way to explain it is, if you put recycled concrete in a bottle of water and shake the bottle of water, the whole, there's so much micro powder in there that the whole water bottle is discolored for like an hour or two. The material that we use, when you shake it, it sits there in 5 minutes, it all sinks down, and it doesn't have the microplastics, or not the micro concrete in it that inhibits the water to percolate through. Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah. That is it.
So are you seeing, or is there currently any kind of trends in your industry that seem to be like the hot thing that people are doing now? Or
yeah, people are really interested in porcelain.
Porcelain.
Very, very interested in porcelain. And then they're always shell-shocked or price-shocked.
Correct. Well, and most of the porcelain, I feel like the drive of the design is because they're big pieces.
Correct, exactly. And you're exactly right. The large format is attractive to people. And if you do marble or travertine, the biggest you can really go is like 24 by 16 inch. And porcelain, you can go much, much larger.
Why is that?
Just because.
Is it the strength of the
correct.
material?
Yeah. So like marble and travertine is a natural stone, so you're kind of stuck with the strength of material. Porcelain is a pressed and cooked concrete. I mean clay. So it's far stronger. Like a concrete paver is about 6,000 to 9,000 pounds per square foot. Your travertine's like 5,000, and your porcelain's like 30,000.
Oh, geez.
So it's much, much, much stronger.
And you still have to, it's still recommended to install it on like a slab first versus?
Depends on the size. The larger sizes, they always recommend putting on a slab if you're doing it on a driveway. You can do it on, the largest we suggest doing for sand set is 2 feet by 3 feet. If you get bigger than that, the piece is just so big, it almost tends to want to rock.
Right.
Which doesn't look good.
And it'd probably crack easier.
Yeah, correct.
The long term.
So you can do like 24 by 36 pretty well on sand. We do a method called dry packing. And so when you put your base rock down, you have your bedding layer of sand, and we mix a concrete aggregate with our sand. And so it almost makes it like a thin layer of concrete that really locks all the material together and helps any tilting or anything or unlevelness. So that helps a lot, especially on the larger format
So there's a technical aspect to doing what you do.
Oh, yeah, significantly.
Well, there's your engineering background.
Yeah, exactly.
Do you and your brother share like stories or like, hey, I found this product? Or
all the time. All the time. And and then, like all construction, you always have struggles on your job. So we always go through that.
So jobs, is there a particular, or is there one job that comes to mind that was like your favorite, or the job that you really like loved or most proud of?
Yeah.
Anything special that you can
Yeah, I mean, I
tell
did
us
my
about?
neighbor's job. I love doing that. My next door neighbor, they moved in about 3 or 4 years ago, and they had someone flipped the house and did like a poor patio job.
Right.
So, we became friends, and so they're telling me what they wanted to do, and they didn't really know I did this yet. And I was like, oh, I'd be happy to do it for you.
Right. I'm heading that way.
Yeah, so we redid their whole back patio. We put in an outdoor kitchen. We put a like an accent wall in with their TVs because they love watching football on Sundays, and we put a whole bar in and kitchen, and so I love that because it looks beautiful, but I also get to use it all the time.
I was going to say, you get to visit it, your handiwork.
Yeah. So that was a lot of fun. And they love it and appreciate it, and it turned out beautiful. So that was probably the favorite job I've done so far.
So back a little bit to the entrepreneurial spirit, when you were getting your feet wet and starting, was it mainly word of mouth, or, I mean, when you hear of that like special job, I mean,
so
they're your best.
Yeah, I mean, that's for any like good qualified lead, word of mouth is the best. Working in construction for a number of years, I had some contacts already in the residential market. So I had a few contacts, and then your marketing when you're starting out is, I didn't know. I've never done marketing before. So
is it internet marketing? Is it?
Yeah, so Google Ads
Right.
primarily. So trying to figure out that. So the Google Ads leads initially, as we're learning, weren't great, other than we do a lot of repair work, paver repair work for, trees lifting roots in your driveway or patio, or a lot of paver sunk around your pool edge. So the Google Ads were great for that, and we still get a lot of work out of that. And so I did a lot of that work because I could do it myself, and it was low overhead, and most of it's a day or less work. So it gave me time to do other things. Larger projects just take time and energy.
Planning.
And planning. But I had the time to go around and do all these jobs. So that was very, very beneficial and helped me, kind of get off the ground. And as you do these repairs, people appreciate a lot, and save your card. And if they have a friend who's doing a pool deck or patio, like, hey, I know a guy who did a great job at my
so you're
house.
getting the word of mouth.
Yeah, so that was a good way of just getting my name out to quite a few people.
So what does your team look like today?
So right now it's myself and my crew. It's primarily a 3-man crew. We pick up 1 or 2 guys, for larger scale projects. My crew leader is far better at pavers than me.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, he's the best. Yeah, I love him a lot. We work great together.
How'd you find him?
I drove around a lot looking at paver jobs.
Really?
Yeah, and looking at crews. So I found him doing a job, and he's doing an excellent job, and he showed me some other jobs. And when you're doing this long enough, you can quickly see what
is good and
what is good and what is bad. So then he started out just doing a job for me here and there, and I mean I love his work a lot. It was a lot of it's better than what I would do, or what I could do. Not for repairs, but driveway installs and pool installs and whatnot. So so he's great. I love him a lot.
And then that gives you more time to pursue the entrepreneurial side of building a bigger brand, which I know you're in the process of evolving right now, which I think is very exciting and much needed, which is, more incorporating the whole outdoor experience.
Exactly.
So tell us your philosophy on where that's going.
Yeah, so we are starting to, I wanted to just begin doing pavers because I knew the business aspect of it, the install aspect of it, but I didn't, I've never owned a company or run a company, so I wanted just to start, somewhat on a smaller scale and learn how to do it well, put in your, and put in your processes, you know, of how to schedule, how to budget a job and whatnot, and, you know, figure out how to do that all well. And then the final goal, which we're building into right now, is being a complete exterior modification to the house. Yeah, thank you.
Very exciting.
So, you know, from your hardscapes to your landscaping to your lighting, your irrigation, the goal is to really just be a one-stop shop. So homeowners and clients don't have to call 3 or 4 contractors and, you know, deal with all of them.
I agree.
You can just call one contractor and get everything
and
done.
And that really, back to my favorite, cohesive word, but not only does the design look cohesive in that regard, but also you eliminate your risk, I feel like,
tremendously.
For clients. Otherwise, you just end up with a blame game, and he didn't, or he's late, or she's
without a doubt. Yeah. I mean, there's
the aggravation level.
And a lot of pointing fingers. And then, you know, on any project, you're gonna, you know, there's little things you're bound to miss.
Yeah.
You know, obviously you minimize those to the extent that you can, but when you work with just one company to do all the work, then they're responsible for it, and it's not like, oh, I didn't know that was in, or it wasn't in
budget mine in.
Correct, and it wasn't, you know, I didn't know we had to remove this tree. I thought this demo guy was going to remove this tree. Like little things like that.
It's so
and it's easier to price it. It's easier for the homeowner just to work with one contractor instead of 4, and scheduling. So it just makes everything a lot smoother.
So in all these facets of what you're doing, how do you stay on top of what's new or what's coming out? Or is there shows that you go to, conventions?
There's a couple. I've been quite busy, so I haven't done a ton of them yet. I'm working on, you know, hiring someone to do a lot of the running around for me, to give me more time to do that. But, you know, working with you guys, you know, you guys stay on top of everything. So, you know, you tell me what's new oftentimes, and then, all my material suppliers, they always stay, you know, on top of what's new. Yeah, for sure. And what's selling a lot, and, you know, what's working, what's not working. So they, you know, just being in construction, everyone communicates a lot. So that helps.
Is there certain vendors that you choose to purchase the materials from, like as a regular go-to?
Yeah, definitely. So for porcelain, which is most popular, I only supply from one company called hardscapes.com.
So porcelain is most popular now.
Correct.
Compared to your typical thick paver that most driveways.
Yeah. So for a driveway, just to step back, for a driveway, we always suggest pavers, because they're called interlocking pavers, because the strength of the paver is in the surface area of the one paver touching another. And so when you have cars driving and pushing on them, especially like when you turn quickly into a driveway, that's a lot of force on those pavers. And so porcelain and even marble or travertine, you know, they're larger pieces, so you have less surface area between the pavers, and they're usually a lot thinner. So they tend to fail on a driveway. On a patio, you don't have that issue. So on a driveway, unless you're putting concrete down and then, you know, mud setting porcelain or marble or something on top of it, we try to always suggest doing a paver driveway. Not on patios, because you don't, you know, you're just walking on it. But for porcelain, we only supply from hardscapes.com. They got an office in Boca and then one in Jupiter, or showroom. The reason we only use them is because they have the friction go factor on the top of their paver, so it's a rough surface like a paver would be,
right?
But it has the beauty and elegance of like a porcelain tile.
Okay.
And so why I like that versus like a marble or travertine is, especially on pool decks where you have water, it tends to get a little
slippery,
but the porcelain is, since they have this rough surface, it's a lot safer. It's beautiful. I think it's, you know, I like the more modern look. So
Yes.
it's very beautiful. And so that's why we supply from them exclusively. For your marble and travertine, there's, it's all imported from Italy.
Right.
Not Italy, Turkey, excuse me. And so, it's more of the quality control on your suppliers, not necessarily the material itself,
but the lot.
Yeah,
color
correct.
variation.
Yeah. So I primarily use Sinai marble and tile down in Pompano. They're excellent to work with. If you ever have to do an addition or an extension, they make sure you're pulling from the same lot that you already used.
Right.
And they're, in my opinion, their material is more consistent than some of the bigger contractors or distributors that go for volume. I mean, they still move a lot of material, but I prefer them, and they're much easier to work with.
Is there any sort of warranty that goes hand in hand with the work or the product at all, or?
For the material?
Yeah.
Yeah. So for marble and travertine, not really, because it's a natural stone. So it's not really since they're not manufacturing it, there's not a lot of warranty on that. On any job, it's good to see if your contractor can give you, 20 or 30 extra square feet if you have the space to keep it, just for, any issues or if something gets discolored, especially like your marbles, your lighter materials tend to always,
they're porous.
Yeah, they're very porous.
Yes.
They're very porous. Your porcelain and your pavers definitely have a warranty on them.
Huh.
Yep. And then most contractors only do a 1-year warranty on their work. We include a 5-year warranty on our work, just because we believe we're installing it correctly. So, yeah.
So obviously your company, Oakscapes, has an impeccable reputation.
Thanks.
And how do you, like you mentioned before, like there is sometimes design changes that come up mid-process or mid-installation, or how do you kind of mitigate any of your risks or communications with the client when those things?
Yeah, it's good to just be open up front instead of, you can always get caught doing the work and not getting paid for the work. So it's always good just to communicate well. If someone wants something different and it's, minimal, you kind of just eat the cost.
Yeah.
Just, you don't want to be a hassle to your clients. But like on a larger change orders, it's always good to make sure they know what they want, and know that it wasn't initially included, and just communicate, like, if you're going to do this, it's going to cost this much more because it's different material or more material or, many variations.
Right.
But that's, in my opinion, it's just better to, present what the cost difference, if there is a cost difference up front, and then, move forward from there instead of, saying, oh, we did this work because you said you were going to do it, instead of, verifying. So, and then, your client's not caught off guard and say, oh, I didn't know that was going to cost more.
Right.
That happens, can happen. So, yeah, that makes life a lot, smoother for both parties.
And like within this like ecological, is there any of that you come across? Like,
people, do you have any clients or customers or people that are, is this all eco-friendly?
Or like,
is this,
is
not
this
hurting,
kind to
coming
the
and hurting the environment?
Yeah, surprisingly, not a ton of that.
Shocker.
Yeah, there's not a ton of that. Every now and then, primarily with artificial turf, people are kind of get shifty about that, just because it heats up a lot.
Correct. Gets hot.
It gets very hot, and so people are worried about like plastic, getting in their soil, or plastic getting in their dogs or their kids or whatnot. That's like that.
So you've
that
had people
aspect.
ask that.
Oh yeah.
And does that happen? I'm sure we're all microplastic.
Yeah, I
to
mean,
death.
I don't think any more than drinking a water bottle.
Right.
I mean,
yeah, I mean, that's not really an issue. Like for pets and stuff. I mean, there's pet friendly turf.
yeah.
That only means it's more porous.
Right.
That lets the
Water.
urine or stuff flow through better.
Right,
It's not
right.
like it's really safer than the other ones.
Right, okay.
So yeah, the only eco-friendly is really only an artificial turf. If people are doing it, we try to suggest do it under a pergola or do it under a tree where there's more shade. If you're going to have your kids playing on it and whatnot.
Right.
If not, it doesn't really matter. Most of the time you don't go out when it's 90 degrees outside.
Right.
You go out in the
We
evening.
we love artificial turf.
Oh,
We
me
think
too. I love it.
It's the
Well,
best.
it's so clean.
Yeah,
and
it's so
I mean,
clean.
for Florida in general, like with so many trees, the grass doesn't
grow.
grow.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, no, I love artificial turf a lot. I love mix and matching it with pavers. I think it looks beautiful.
I do too.
Yeah.
So running a successful business involves lots of moving parts. We kind of touched on that, but how do you balance the creative part with all the technical moving parts?
Yeah, so I'm not extremely creative. Sadly enough, I wish I was more creative. If someone has an idea of what to do, I can execute it very well and, modify it to improve it.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm not like the most creative person myself. So I, rely on designers like you guys to assist with that.
And we've had a good relationship.
Oh, yeah, terrific. I
From
love
that
it.
standpoint. Yeah, we do too.
Yeah. And so, especially like on larger projects where, you have a whole patio or a whole backyard or a whole, exterior remodel,
Mm-hmm.
I heavily rely on people who have the design aspect. I wish I did, but I don't have a terrific one.
Well, we rely on people like yourself.
Right,
For sure.
who can execute our designs in a flawless.
Yeah.
And I think
Install.
what's even more important that we talk about is that people that we partner with, that we bring on, that when the client's coming to us going, oh my God, I love this guy Matthew that you have doing my backyard.
Yeah.
He's just like great.
Yeah.
I mean, that's
a good
you want to
feeling.
hear that with like every vendor
For sure.
and everyone that you're working with.
For
And you want
sure.
the client to feel that way
No doubt.
in the process.
No doubt.
Because that's like we've said a number of times, the word of mouth comes in over and over then.
For sure. For
Yeah.
sure. Yeah.
I know, and even as we're sitting here and I'm hearing all these like technical things that I don't think about as much, I'm like, as that one driveway we have, in the works right now where we're like mixing the materials
Yeah.
and we're doing a design in there, I was like, I think only you can do that.
Yeah. Yeah.
So last question for you.
Yes, sir.
For someone who's listening, thinking that they want to get into, the exterior hardscape business, the landscape business, what advice would you give them? What would you say to someone?
I'd say work for someone for 3,
I know,
4,
what a
5
great-
years
Uh-huh.
Great
before
advice.
doing it. And like at my last company, when I was hired, I told the owners I wanted to start a company. Eventually, I didn't know when. So my old boss was very kind. He knew I wanted to do that. And so he kind of brought me in on more of the business
Mentored.
aspect of it than just, my
Right.
job. And, how to work with clients, what jobs you pursue or pursue more than other ones. So I'd say that's probably the best approach.
Yeah, so you're living the American dream. And I consider to be the American dream is that you fell into a business, you loved and liked the business, you learned a lot about that business and other aspects of construction, and then one day you decided, I'm going to go do this on my own.
Yes, sir.
And it's a big risk to quit a job that you're working for a corporation.
Yes, sir.
And then go, I'm going to start this business. I have no clients.
Yeah.
No one's ever heard of me. No one knows that I'm doing this.
And I had one kid and one on the way.
You had a child on the way.
Yeah.
That was perfect timing.
Oh, yeah. I got my third one on the way now.
No, but it
That's
just
so
proves
fabulous.
that, I mean, if you put your heart behind it,
Oh, for sure.
and no matter what you're looking to do,
Yeah. Oh, no
With
doubt.
faith and
Possibilities
hard
can
work,
happen.
right?
A lot of hours, no doubt.
Yeah,
no doubt
hard
about
work.
that. But it's very rewarding.
That's wonderful.
Yeah.
well, we appreciate your time and spending
Yeah,
with
certainly.
us today, and
Thanks for having me.
having you on the iDesign Lab.
Yeah, thanks.
And as we wrap up, we have a couple quick
Wanna
little
shoot a couple of
questions.
questions? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So what's your, I mean, you have little children and obviously one on the way. What's your favorite, like, vacation? Like, hotel, I mean, when you guys want to get away and.
My wife and I.
What's the coolest, or maybe design, or?
I mean, my favorite vacation right now with kids is my wife and I. We go like for 4 or 5 days to an all-inclusive resort. We usually do it every year.
Good for
And
you.
you just sit there and don't talk a lot and don't do a lot, and you can
the
sleep
best.
a lot.
Are there any favorites that cool or really well done?
Yeah, probably our favorite one was the Sanctuary in Dominican Republic.
Oh, cool.
That
Sanctuary.
that one was terrific, and the service there
Was amazing.
Yeah, amazing. Yeah, that was probably the best one so far. Yeah. My family and my wife's family lives close, so it's not like
A big deal.
we do a lot of vacations with family just because we see them,
Right.
A lot.
once a week or twice a week, or
That's good.
every
That's
other
good.
day.
That's wonderful.
And then I have a lot of cousins. My dad's one of 7. My mom's one of 6.
Wow. How fun.
And so, like, most vacations right now are just,
Families.
yeah, going to family. And, it's our kids are, 2.5 and 1.5 and one on the way. So it's not like you can do a whole lot with them.
Right.
So most of it's just, hanging out with other people's kids and
Yeah.
hoping they play together.
Exactly. Like, that's what I say. It's like having built-in babysitting.
Yeah, exactly,
Like, he's got to go
exactly.
go to like a restaurant where they can walk around and
Yeah.
find
So
another.
restaurant. Is there any really cool restaurant that comes to mind? We like to try to focus, like, and think about design, or you walk in and go,
Or
wow,
I
this is
even
really...
say even lack of design, because sometimes like barefoot in the Bahamas. I mean, who knows?
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
We did a podcast recently about ugly design.
Oh, that's kind
About,
of cool.
you don't realize, you
Yeah,
don't think
yeah.
about it, but there's a lot of ugly design
there's
around
no
us.
doubt.
And a lot of time we laugh about it and don't even
Yeah.
really think about it. Like, why did someone design, that? Like Crocs, like,
Oh, yeah, those are
you know,
ugly. They're ugly, there's no doubt.
the ugly Christmas sweaters that people throw parties to wear
Yeah,
them.
I have not been to one.
You don't
But
wanna
there's
own
like,
that.
restaurant, because it's like restaurant, something that most people go to every regularly.
Yeah.
Or
Yeah. Favorite restaurant?
design or lack of design, or or even experience, because there's the design in creating the experience.
Yeah, we have a good friend who has like 3 qualifications: the ambiance, the food, and the music. of a
I know
restaurant.
live music is fun
Yeah.
too.
Yeah, I'm not a fan of live music.
Oh,
but
that's-
my wife is, so I
Okay.
put
Really?
up with it every now and then.
Okay.
I don't like it at a restaurant.
It's too
I
loud.
I like
Can't
to talk.
overtalk.
Yeah, I like talking.
I
I,
like
don't want
chatting,
to.
too.
Maybe if it's someone I don't know great.
That's funny.
But yeah, I don't like it just most of the time at restaurants. Probably Elizabeth's in West Palm
Oh
Beach.
yeah, that's such a cute atmosphere.
I love that, and we usually always sit outside and you
Yeah.
can look
Yeah,
over
look at all the big
yeah,
boats.
I
yeah,
love
that's
that.
probably our favorite. There's another good, a really nice one. It's called Yacht in West Palm
Oh.
Beach.
I don't
Not
know.
familiar.
I'm at Fort Lauderdale.
Oh, I'm
It's
not
kind
on
of
it.
like it's in a marina, and it's like mostly service to the
boats.
but it's a very nice restaurant. It's right on the river there.
Oh, fun.
Great food, good eating. It's we when I worked down there, we used to go for lunch there all the time. It's a really nice place.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for
Yeah,
joining us
certainly.
today.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
Yes, thanks.
Yeah, certainly.
All right.
iDesign Labs podcast is an SW Group production in association with the 5-Star and TW Interiors. To learn more about iDesign Lab or TW Interiors, please visit twinteriors.com.